In modern society, no one has a face. In fact, many times, the more well-known you are and the more recognized you are by others, the less you can be an individual person. This is the interpretation of John is Awful, the new episode of Black Mirror. John is our main character. Besides the fact that his name is on the cover, this really is a meta story, because it's a story that's about the character, but it's also a story about the stories themselves. John works at a software company and works in human resources. His job, in fact, is to run people. She's not that happy, even though she's engaged to a guy who loves her and wants her. Apparently, like nothing in her life really just clicks for her, or completely satisfies her. In fact, she goes to therapy, and when she arrives with the therapist, the first thing she does is complain about the quality of the coffee and says that if she could work in something else, she would have her own little coffee shop and serve the coffee that she really likes. She kind of has this attitude of nonconformity where nothing seems to fill her completely. She says herself, I don't feel in control of my own life. I feel like an actress in my own story, and this is soon to be revealed as a true prophecy. At the end of that day, Joan comes home with her boyfriend and they start watching TV on a show that's kind of a Netflix of that universe. It's called Strawberry or something, and they start looking to see what to watch, and they can't decide exactly what kind of series they want to watch, and they find a very peculiar series called John is Awful. I mean, John is awful. And on the cover is Salma Hayek, but Salma Hayek very much like her. And obviously, they're both immediately very surprised, like how can there be a series that has my name, the same clothes as me, and in fact even the same look and the same haircut as me. Obviously, they start watching the series and then they start to get really surprised because everything that happens in the series documents everything that had happened that day. They put her in the situation where she has to fire someone, then she goes to therapy. She complains about her life. In therapy, she also reveals that she has like a toxic, loving, forbidden relationship with her ex-boyfriend, with whom she is cheating on her fiancé, and all of that is revealed in the series. Immediately, she realizes that she has completely lost her identity and goes into a panic attack. She starts to feel obviously very frustrated because her life is being reflected on the screen, only that she is being personified by Salma Hayek. Obviously, her fiancé realizes that she hates him to begin with or doesn't like him, and is also cheating on him with her ex-boyfriend, so he leaves her, and she goes into this negative spiral of not knowing what she can do with her own life that is being documented in front of her own eyes. The next day, when she wakes up already broken, she goes to a lawyer and says, how is it possible that this TV station or this channel, this streaming service is making a series about my life? And there the lawyer tells him that you can do absolutely nothing, because when you sign the terms and conditions, those little tiny letters that you just click yes when you get into a new platform, in those terms and conditions, you sign the rights to your own data, even to your own image. And there is a specific paragraph that said that they can use your image, your information, and your whole life to artificially recreate using AI and GPT chat to write a script and document your own life, and you completely gave up your rights by signing the terms and conditions agreements. So she now has a series that everyone is watching, that everyone is seeing what a rube she is, what a bad person she is, how brutal she is, and at the same time she can't do anything about it. Here she has an idea. The truth is that she is quite aggressive and quite extreme because she says, well, if nobody can do anything about it and I can't sue the TV station because I supposedly signed the agreements and conditions for them to use my image, at least I can get Salma Hayek's attention. She is a famous actress who is exactly personifying my life. So I'm going to do something extremely embarrassing to put Salma Hayek in an embarrassing situation so that she will be the one to intercede for me. So she goes to one of those fast food hamburger restaurants, buys all the hamburgers on the menu, plus a liter of laxative, dresses up as a purist, and gets into a wedding and obviously ruins the wedding in a very embarrassing way, so to speak. Obviously, later in the evening, she arrives victorious to watch her day on a new episode of Johnny's Awful, and has to see how Salma Hayek is acting out what she went through that day. Then Salma Hayek goes out dressed as a purist, eats some burgers, and goes to visit a wedding where she has diarrhea in the middle of all the guests. So she courts. Salma Hayek is explaining to her lawyer and says, how can it be that I in this series am obligated to do this kind of thing? And you realize that it's not really Salma Hayek acting, but Salma Hayek gave up her digital rights and they are simulating her using artificial intelligence, and it's just a 3D avatar of Salma Hayek using deepfake with quantum technology that is acting the life of Johnny's Awful acted by Salma Hayek. So her lawyer says, hey, you can't do anything either because when you gave your image rights to this TV company, you gave them the right to do anything with your image. And in fact, it says here in this paragraph that it includes having diarrhea, so you can't sue them either. So at this point, Salma Hayek is going to find John to scold her, or I guess run into her. When he runs into her, the two of them really kind of don't know exactly how to act, but they say we have to do something. We have to go to this company that produces these videos, that produces this series about your life that is ruining my image by reference, and stop them from doing something about it. When they get to this company, they find out that there's actually a super advanced quantum computing computer that is the one that produces through mining the data of the content consumers and transforms it into series that are personalized to the person who is watching the content, and as everyone to come in contact with this platform signs up and opens hand or gives the platform right of use of their data. The platform can really do anything, no one can sue them, and no one owns anything but the platform itself. But here a very interesting secret about the series is revealed. They are willing to physically destroy the server and the processor that produces these works and these series, but a guy who works there, who is actually Michael Cera, who comes out in a pretty cool role. But here it's discovered that John, the one that you and I were following from the beginning of this story, is not even the original John, but is the John 1. Somewhere out there is a John 0. The series or chapter ends when John 1 is with an axe in her hand about to take an axe to the server, and she says, "Wait, if I'm John 1, this already happened." This is a replay of the episode from the life of the first person who actually lived it, so I can't make this decision either. The decision is going to be made by John 0, who is the one who is going to decide if she doesn't want to destroy this computer. And flat out she says, "I feel like I'm losing control over my hands," and she takes an axe to the quantum computer and smashes the whole artificial intelligence technology. The episode ends with the original John 1, who was not any of the actresses that had appeared, not the original, not Salma Hayek, but just another random actress, who is in a cafe where she now has a little bracelet on her leg because she has house arrest and is serving the coffee that she finally wanted. Now really being the protagonist of her own life. And the actress who played John from the beginning comes to visit her, and they are great friends, and she also has a bracelet on her leg for destroying private property within the company that produced a series about the two of them. I really like this episode, although I think it has a number of plots that are kind of tied up half wrong because it posts a couple of interesting questions, and Black Mirror constantly does this. Black Mirror constantly makes us question ourselves about the dangers of technology. To think of technology not as something neutral, but as something that allows us to look at the world from another angle. In this case, the technologies we are dealing with in this episode are: first, artificial intelligence, which is the ability to produce those scripts in real time for the viewers. Second, deepfake, which is the ability to simulate faces identical to people who are not really there, even moving them around and making them talk as if they were these people. Imagine the danger that this could imply not only for us in the common world, but for presidents, public figures, CEOs, generals, or artists who might really have a very influential opinion, and using their image against their will could really be a disaster. And third, ownership over data and individuality, which this is the point for me that is the most interesting in this series. There are a couple of things here that I think are worth looking at. First, why did they decide to call this series John is Awful? Which they actually mention within the episode. Why not put something like John is Wonderful, or John is Awesome, or John is Fun? Because they realized doing consumer research that it didn't really produce enough engagement. The idea is that this platform, which is similar to a Netflix, could produce for each viewer a program about his life, showing all his failures, his vices, and his shortcomings. And why? Because this produces more engagement. And this is actually not far from reality. Social networks have an incredible potential to connect us, to create community, and to produce goodness and knowledge, but it is used for insults, for trolling, for public cancellations, for public inquisition, and for the destruction of personal images. This is really like the worst of human vice manifested through our use of social media, the really indifferent and immoral, rather immoral algorithms in the face of human behavior. The only thing they seek is to increase interaction. They don't really care what we do with these interactions. Therefore, the series ended up being an awful version of what each one of us is. Secondly, there is this very important questioning that the main character has when she is talking to her therapist, saying, "I don't feel like the protagonist of my own life." And here, obviously, when talking about these different levels of meta-language or meta-narrative, where there is a John 0, which is the original John, a first version acting that John 0, and then several versions acting the performance of the others within the same play, it makes us think about how original we are. Well, I mean, I see myself as I have seen people who dress, and I like the way they dress. And the colors that are in fashion because someone made them fashionable. And that first person who made them fashionable did not make them fashionable by free and spontaneous will, but that favorite color comes from a long, significant chain that has produced the desire to put that color in a special place. So to really think of ourselves as the main actors of our plays is an impossible fantasy to achieve, because all of us are historically constituted by a series of factors that modify our behavior and produce influences on us, and we end up acting out these influences. So in many ways, that pain of never being the protagonist of your own life is a fairly modern existential pain that many people can identify with. This brings me to the next problem, which is, well, then this also makes us completely detached from our individuality. We don't own what we want, we don't own what we produce, and yes, we do have partial ownership over the way we act, but that property of the way we act has to do with the subjective interpretation that we give to the facts and also to the mistakes we make, because you can try to replicate a work of art. If you get it perfect, maybe the merit is not yours, but if you ruin it or produce an error or produce a standard deviation from what you were trying to replicate, that error represents a very big part of the work. That mistake does represent a very large and potentially very nice part of your originality. Then finally, there will be the difficulty about data ownership. Today, our entire persona, our avatar, who we are, the things you like, the trips you've had, your favorite foods, your playlist of songs, your Pinterest photos, your compilation of videos in your feed on Instagram, your favorite TikTok memes, your YouTube videos and playlists, all that information that makes you individual, that somehow reflects who you are. While you don't have it, platforms have it, and these platforms are not public, neither are they governmental, they are private companies. So all that information that constitutes you as an individual, because it is a reflection of your preferences, your desires, your ambitions, your fears, and your aspirations, is in the hands of private property. As they are private property, they are not yours. You sign that they have the right and access to that data, so what you do to yourself does not belong to you, because it is being monetized in favor of the entertainment it produces for you, and in favor of continuing to sell you things. A very important part of who we are today is not in our hands. And finally, what we have to think about is that the way we act many times tends to stick to meta-narratives. Meta-narratives, think of it as a script that is given to you at birth, and it's a script that you decide to act on, or you can improvise a little bit, or you can even throw that script away and look for a new script. But an example of a script would be, you have to grow up, study a career, get married, buy a house, produce goods, have children, reproduce, have a garden with a little white picket fence, and die. That would be a script. These meta-narratives, these scripts we are given, somehow function as molds for human behavior. But it's really hard to think of a person who doesn't stick to anything, to any script. What we all do is collect these scripts, we interpret them, we give them our form, our reading, our version of the script, and some of us actually spend a lot of time rejecting scripts. It's not bad to change your mind about the script you got. It is not bad that halfway through your life, you realize that maybe the life of being a dad, a family, and a little house with a grill is not for you. It's also not bad that maybe you reject the idea that just having pets is enough and look for an affectionate bond with a human being. No script has ever really proven itself to be eternal, transcendent, true and supreme and superior over others. Rather, what makes us subjects is the ability to reject these scripts and look for other alternatives. And in the end, one of the things that sticks with me the most from this episode is that under the current model, mainly corporate, private, economic, and productive, we all end up being actors in someone else's play or actors in someone else's script. Joan from the beginning, who was the lead actress, the character in a company that had to run people. The company is nobody. The company is not a person. It is not a subject, but the company, through the board of directors, makes a decision to end the life of a person by taking his job. And Joan is the face that the company gives to run people off. Salma Hayek is an actress. Salma Hayek gives the face for acting and entertaining others. We, in a way, have to give face for what we appear to be in social networks, for building a public figure that other people can stick to us. This relationship between acting our lives and being purely in a genuine way is a big problem and a big existential dilemma where it really seems to me that there is no easy solution, but really what makes us subjects is this constant question about what can I do for the script that I got, whether or not I accept the script or whether I am willing to write my own story.